The moment his boot tapped the back of my thigh, something in me snapped. We were at our daughter Lily's school fundraiser. It was a sunny Saturday afternoon. Parents were sipping lemonade and smiling fake smiles while kids ran around in face paint. My wife, Madison, had insisted we attend as a happy family. She wore a tight white sundress and heels too high for a field event, flipping her hair every time someone glanced our way. She'd been glued to her phone all morning, but I ignored it. That was my mistake. Then he showed up. Trent, 6'3", square-jawed, the kind of guy who looked like he practiced his smirk in the mirror. I'd never seen him before in my life. But Madison? She didn't just know him. She lit up like a teenager at prom. She called him T and laughed at everything he said, even when it wasn't funny. I clenched my jaw and kept it together for Lily. Until the nudge. A soft, deliberate jab just under my left butt cheek. A move made not to injure, but to humiliate. I turned to find Trent's eyes locked on mine, his mouth curling. "Bring me coffee," he said slowly, like he was speaking to a child. "Or I'll take your wife forever." He said it right in front of Lily, right in front of Madison. And the worst part? Madison laughed. My world blurred. Time cracked open. My military training kicked in. I didn't speak. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't give him a warning. I just turned. A pivot of the foot, a twist of the hip, one precise blow to the side of his jaw. His sunglasses flew. His legs buckled. I caught him before he hit the ground and lowered him gently onto the grass like a fallen log. The crowd gasped. Kids screamed. Madison ran toward him, not me, and shrieked his name like he was the one worth saving. They called an ambulance. I stayed still, breathing like I was back in Kandahar, dust in my throat and a rifle at my side. When the medics lifted Trent onto the stretcher, his jaw hung loose like a puppet's. He'd be sipping soup through a straw for a long time. I stood next to the cotton candy stand while they rolled him away. Madison came up to me, red-faced, mascara running, but not from concern for me. Her voice trembled, not with fear, but rage. "You're insane," she snapped. "You humiliated me." I stared at her. "He touched me, in front of my daughter. And you laughed." She scoffed, arms crossed, as if I were some errant intern who botched a coffee order. "He's a real man, Adam," she hissed. "Maybe if you had a spine outside of your combat stories, I wouldn't be looking elsewhere." Right then, I knew. This wasn't a flirtation. It wasn't just inappropriate messages or secret smiles. This was deep. This was betrayal, rotting from the inside. My wife had brought her lover to our child's school fundraiser. He threatened me. She laughed, and I'd reacted with precision. But now, the real damage began. I looked at Lily, sitting alone on the bench with her knees pulled up, confused and quiet. Everything I'd fought for, my home, my peace, my family, was being gutted by the woman I trusted most. But Madison? She was just warming up. "Don't think you've won," she whispered. "He might be drinking through a straw, but I still have your daughter. And your house. So go ahead, play the soldier. I'll be the queen." She turned on her heel and walked away. I didn't follow. I stared at her back, her ridiculous heels sinking into the grass, and I made a silent vow. This war just started, and I don't lose wars that I didn't go home that night. Not because I was afraid. No, I'd stared down rifles in war zones colder than my marriage, but because I needed silence. Not the empty, awkward silence that had filled our house for months. I needed the kind of silence where thoughts turn into plans, where pain becomes precision. I sat in my truck, parked near the overlook on Miller Ridge, staring out at the city lights. Madison's words echoed in my head. "I still have your daughter. And your house." She said it like she'd won. Like I was the idiot who got blindsided in his own home. But she forgot something. I don't react. I prepare. The next morning, I drove home around 6:30 a.m. The sun was barely up, the sky a gray smear. I unlocked the front door and walked into my house like a stranger. The coffee table was tipped. Madison's heels were by the stairs. There was a sweater on the floor that didn't belong to her. I picked it up. Men's. Expensive. Too expensive for Trent, who probably spent his money on gym memberships and tanning oil. So there was another one. I walked past the living room toward the kitchen. My dog, Rex, didn't even lift his head from his bed. He looked tired, no doubt from the yelling that had probably happened after I left. Then I heard it. Laughter. From upstairs. I froze for half a breath. A man's voice. I walked up slowly, my boots thudding on the hardwood stairs. Madison's door was half open. I pushed it wider, and there they were. Her and someone else, shirtless, under my sheets. He was some finance-looking pretty boy. Younger. Hair like he was in a shampoo commercial. Madison was giggling like a high schooler sneaking out after curfew. When she saw me, she didn't scream. She didn't even flinch. She just sighed. "Oh, you're early." That was it. That's all she had to say. Like I was the one who'd ruined her morning. The guy scrambled, covering himself with the blanket like a child. I looked at him, dead in the eyes. He wouldn't last 10 seconds in a real fight. "You brought someone else into our bed," I said, low and steady. She stretched her arms like she was sunbathing. "Technically, it's my bed now, Adam. You walked out." The level of contempt in her voice could have melted steel. She got up, bare legs, no shame, wrapped in that smug confidence only someone truly heartless could wear. "You think one punch makes you a hero?" she sneered. "He." She pointed toward the trembling finance boy. "He listens to me. He worships me. You? You treat me like background noise." "Because that's what you became," I snapped. Her face twisted. "Let me guess," she said with a laugh. "You're going to give me a whole monologue about betrayal? Loyalty? Spare me. You were married to your job, to your war buddies, to your damn guns and glory. I found real attention, real men. You just carry a uniform and a boring bedtime." It was so clean, so cold. She wasn't even angry. She was done. And in that moment, something in me died. Not love. I think that had been rotting for a while. It was trust, respect, the belief that, deep down, people change when they're loved hard enough. I looked at her, standing there like a villain in lingerie, and realized something dangerous. She didn't regret a thing, and she wouldn't stop until she took everything. So I walked out of that room, not in defeat, in silence. But before I left, I said one thing. "You wanted a war, Madison? You just picked the wrong general." I left the house with nothing but my truck keys, my phone, and a fire in my chest hotter than anything I'd felt on the battlefield. This wasn't rage. It wasn't even heartbreak anymore. This was the calm before the storm. The place my mind always went before missions, the zone where plans were born. I had two objectives now: protect Lily and destroy whatever fantasy Madison had built for herself. Step 1, lawyer. I called Marcus Green, the best divorce attorney in the city. He answered on the second ring, half awake. I told him everything. Names, dates, her threats, the affair, the man in my bed, Trent at the school. He whistled through his teeth. "You have proof?" he asked. "I've got witnesses, bruises, and soon I'll have video." "Then we start today," he said. "Don't tell her. Just let me work." Done. Step 2, Lily. I drove to my sister Hannah's place. She lived 30 minutes outside the city in a quiet cul-de-sac with her 2 boys and a husband who worked nights. Hannah had always been the one person I could trust, even when we were kids. She opened the door in a hoodie, eyes half shut, coffee in hand. One look at me, and she knew. "What happened?" "I'm pulling Lily out for the weekend. I need her away from Madison." She didn't ask questions, just nodded and let me through. Lily was on the couch watching cartoons, still in her pajamas. She looked up and smiled, but it faded fast. "Daddy, is Mommy mad at you?" I knelt beside her, brushing her hair from her face. "No, sweetheart. Mommy's just confused right now. But I promise, none of this is your fault. And I'm here, okay? I'm not going anywhere." She nodded, but her eyes looked older than a child's should, like she already understood more than she ever should have had to. I stayed with her all day, played games, watched movies, ate popcorn on the floor. It felt like home. Real home, not the cold, twisted thing Madison had turned our house into. That night, I made the next move. Step 3, gather evidence. I had an old friend, Noah, who owed me favors from our days overseas. He was in private security now. Surveillance, digital footprints, quiet tracking. I called him, gave him Madison's number, email, and full name. "I need everything," I told him. "Where she goes, who she talks to, and especially who she's sleeping with." "You want photos?" "Everything." "No problem," he said. "Give me 2 days." Done. Then I made my final call for the night, to Madison. She didn't answer the first time, or the second. On the third, she picked up with a breathy sigh. "What?" she spat. "I just want to talk about Lily," I said calmly. "I took her to my sister's for the weekend. She needs space from all this." "You took her without asking me," she barked. "She's our daughter, Madison, not a pawn." She laughed. "Don't act like you care. You were always more in love with your weapons than your own kid." "You're making this ugly," I said. No, Adam. You made this ugly the second you hit Trent, like some overcompensating action hero. Now you want to play the victim? Please. There was venom in her voice. No guilt. No second thoughts. Just spite. You're going to lose everything, she said. The house. Your reputation. Lily. All of it. You think courtside with angry military men? You're just another broken vet. She hung up. I stared at the phone, jaw tight. She thought this was a game. But she forgot the most important rule of war. The quiet ones always strike hardest at BY Monday morning. The trap was already halfway built. Noah sent me the first batch of data at 6:12 a.m., a folder filled with time-stamped photos, text message threads, and GPS logs. I scrolled through them in silence, sipping bitter coffee in Hannah's kitchen while the rest of the house slept. Turns out Madison had a whole rotation of men. There was Trent, of course, currently wired shut and drinking smoothies through a straw. But also Logan, the finance pretty boy I'd found in my bed. And two others. Chase, a married guy she met at her yoga studio, and one named Jason, her business coach, who charged her in more ways than one. Different nights. Different hotels. Some of it even in our own home. But the worst? She brought Lily to one of the meetups. Not into the room. Thank God. But to the lobby of a downtown hotel while she had a work meeting. Lily sat in the cafe with a tablet and a juice box while her mother played house upstairs. I stared at that photo the longest. My daughter in a booth, swinging her feet. Alone. Her mother upstairs, doing things no child should ever be near. I felt my knuckles crack from how tight my fists clenched. Enough. I called Marcus, forwarded everything, and we agreed. Emergency custody motion. The evidence was enough to not only prove unfit parenting, but also psychological instability, recklessness, and moral abandonment. That last term, judges loved it. Next step, the surprise. I returned home that afternoon, alone. I had legal clearance to enter. The house was still half mine. I parked out front, walked up the driveway like it was just another Monday, and unlocked the door. Madison wasn't home. I stepped inside and was hit with the perfume she always overused. Expensive, overpowering, suffocating. The kind of scent that tried too hard to feel classy. The living room was spotless. Too spotless. Like she was preparing for guests. I smiled. I went upstairs, into the master bedroom, our bedroom, and opened the closet. Most of my clothes were stuffed in a laundry bag shoved behind a shoe rack. She was erasing me. I laughed. Quietly. Bitterly. Then I took out the flash drive from my pocket and placed it gently on the dresser. Alongside it, I left an envelope, my lawyer's official notice of custody filing and divorce initiation. Neatly signed. On the back of the envelope, I wrote one sentence. Now sip your karma through a straw like your boyfriend. I left the room and headed back downstairs when the front door opened. Madison walked in, shopping bags in hand, sunglasses still on. She paused when she saw me, then rolled her eyes. What? You forget your ammo or something. I looked her in the eyes. Just wanted to drop something off. She noticed the slight edge in my tone, but ignored it, brushing past me like I was a delivery guy. You're seriously pathetic, Adam. You think leaving me some dramatic note changes anything? Trent's pressing charges. And once the custody hearing hits, I'll show them who the real monster is. You sure about that? I asked, watching her. She turned, confused. What the hell does that mean? I didn't answer. I just walked to the door, opened it, and looked back one last time. Checked the dresser. Then I closed the door behind me. The next time we'd be in the same room, she'd be standing in front of a judge, with photos, texts, and lies she couldn't take back. I wasn't just taking back my life. I was taking it all. 2 days later, the courtroom smelled like cheap perfume and polished wood. Madison strutted in wearing a cream-colored pantsuit that screamed, "I'm innocent," and heels high enough to make her look powerful, not practical. She even brought her mother, Deborah, who sat beside her with a frozen smile, whispering bitter encouragement between clenched teeth. I sat on the other side of the room, stone-faced in a dark suit, hands folded neatly. Lily wasn't with us. She was safe at Hannah's, coloring outside the lines and asking when things would be normal again. I promised her they would be soon. Judge Kimberly Dorsey entered, stern, sharp-eyed, no nonsense. The kind of woman who could smell dishonesty from across the state line. She didn't look at Madison the way most people did. She didn't smile back. That was my first win. Then it began. Marcus opened with a calm, factual statement. No drama. Just dates, documents, testimony, and exhibits. Every word clipped and professional. Your Honor, what we're presenting is not just evidence of adultery, Marcus said, sliding the flash drive across the table. It's a pattern of endangerment, psychological manipulation, and reckless parenting that has directly affected the child's well-being. Click. One by one, the screens lit up, photos from the hotel lobby, messages Madison had sent from within earshot of Lily, even one voicemail where she laughed while calling me a battle-worn babysitter. Her face cracked. For the first time, she blinked. Deborah leaned over and whispered something that clearly didn't help. Then Madison spoke. Your Honor, this is all twisted. He's spinning everything. I've been the primary caretaker, the stable one. He's a ticking time bomb. He hit a man in public. And why? The judge asked, eyes narrowing. She froze. Because he touched me, I said, voice low and steady. Threatened to take my wife. In front of my daughter. Madison laughed. The silence was louder than any scream. Madison's voice shook. You're lying. He overreacted. He's always angry. He's not safe. Judge Dorsey leaned forward. Ms. Green, did you bring your daughter to a hotel while meeting a man who was not your husband? She stammered. No, it wasn't like that. Did you text a third man explicit messages during that same weekend? Madison's jaw twitched. I don't remember. I didn't flinch. Didn't smile. Just watched her unravel. She turned to me suddenly, voice rising. You set me up. You planted this. You manipulated everything. You're trying to paint me as some kind of monster. I didn't have to paint anything, I said quietly. You drew this picture yourself. Judge Dorsey straightened. That's enough. 30 minutes later, it was over. Temporary sole custody, granted to the father. Madison, supervised visitation only, pending psychological evaluation. She screamed. Loud. Uncontrolled. Her mask shattered like glass. Deborah tried to calm her down, but Madison shoved her arm away. I'll ruin you for this, Adam, she yelled across the room. You think you've won? I'll drag your name through every street in this town. Judge Dorsey slammed the gavel. I stood, buttoned my jacket, and turned to her just once. You already dragged it. I just took it back. Outside, the air was crisp. Clean. I didn't smile. Not yet. There was more to do. But in that moment, brief, fragile, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Control. The war was far from over. But this battle was mine that I didn't celebrate. That's not my style. The night after the hearing, I sat on the porch at Hannah's place with a cold drink in hand, staring at the quiet street while the crickets buzzed around me. Lily was asleep upstairs, safe, finally. But my mind wasn't at rest. Not yet. Because Madison wasn't done. She was a cornered animal now. And animals bite hardest when their ego's bleeding. I knew the next move was coming before it even landed. The following morning, a manila envelope was waiting at the front door. No postage. Just dropped off in person. I opened it slowly. Inside was a printed email chain between Madison and someone at the Department of Veterans Affairs. She'd filed a complaint, claiming I had PTSD, violent episodes, uncontrolled outbursts, and a history of aggression toward her and their child. Below it, a signed affidavit. Her signature. She was trying to get my military pension flagged. She was trying to take my entire identity and smear it in courtrooms and agencies I'd bled for. That was her retaliation. I called Marcus. He was already on it. Don't worry, he said. We'll counterfile. We have more than enough. Let her dig deeper. Eventually, she'll hit lava. But it wasn't the legal part that got me. It was how easy it came to her. How she could write those lies, sleep soundly, and still call herself a mother. I'd seen sociopaths on the battlefield. What I married might have been worse, because she smiled in public while cutting throats in private. But if she wanted war, she picked a man trained for it. I sent Noah one more message. Find out everything about her finances. I want it all. He responded within hours. Turns out, Madison had been funding her lifestyle through more than just credit cards and my income. She was siphoning money from a joint savings account I'd forgotten we even had, one we opened before Lily was born. It had $68,000 in it 3 years ago. Now, $1,142. She'd been using it to pay for hotel suites, private trainers, cosmetic treatments, and business coaching sessions, most of which were just excuses to meet her lineup of sleazy boyfriends. I laughed, not because it was funny, because it was textbook Madison. Use, spend, destroy. But now, It was my turn to take something back. I scheduled a meeting with a forensic accountant, Hannah's neighbor, actually, who specialized in tracking marital asset abuse. He looked over the files and grinned like a man handed a golden goose. "Oh yeah," he said. "This is theft. Fraud, too. If we time it right, she'll be paying you alimony. Even if she wanted the divorce. Especially if she initiated it. You have the kid. You have the evidence. And if we prove willful financial misconduct, courts eat that up." It was beautiful. Poetic. The woman who mocked me for never earning enough was about to start paying me monthly. Still, I kept my head down. Kept my mouth shut. I didn't post on social media. Didn't text her. Didn't gloat. Silence is a sniper's weapon. And I was locked in. But Madison? She cracked. 3 nights later, she showed up at Hannah's. Drunk. She banged on the door like a banshee, screaming, "Adam, come out. You coward." I opened the door slowly, calmly, with Hannah already dialing 911 behind me. Madison stood there, makeup smeared, barefoot on the pavement, waving a bottle of red wine like it was a weapon. "You think you can take everything from me?" she shrieked. "You think you're better than me just cause you put on a uniform?" I didn't answer. That made her angrier. "You're nothing without me," she screamed. A washed-up soldier playing house like a hero. Blue and red lights flashed down the street. I stepped forward. "Go home, Madison." She looked at me, suddenly quiet. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "I'll burn it all down before I let you win." I stared at her. "You already did. I'm just walking out of the ashes." The officers cuffed her gently, guiding her into the cruiser. Lily never woke up. But that was the night I realized something. Madison wasn't just dangerous, she was drowning. And now, she was pulling herself under. The morning after Madison's meltdown, the neighborhood was quiet. No neighbors came knocking. No one asked what happened. That's the thing about people. They love drama from a distance, but fear proximity to its fire. I sat at Hannah's kitchen table, flipping through custody paperwork and sipping black coffee while the headlines in my head read, "Ex-wife arrested in front of child's residence." It should have felt like victory, but it didn't. Not yet. Because even though I had the upper hand, I still had to deal with the wreckage. Emotional, financial, legal. Madison left stains you couldn't scrub off in a single court session. Later that day, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. "Is this Adam Green?" the voice asked. "Yes. This is Detective Rayner. I'm calling in regard to a report made against you by Madison Green. She claims you've been stalking, harassing, and threatening her." I closed my eyes. The hits just kept coming. She filed that before or after the wine bottle performance on my sister's lawn? There was a pause. "I can't comment on her current status. I just need to ask if you'd be willing to come in voluntarily and clarify your side." I agreed. Of course. I had nothing to hide. At the station, I sat down across from Rayner, a seasoned guy, probably in his 50s, with lines around his eyes that came from dealing with people like Madison on a regular basis. He pressed the record button. I laid it all out, without anger, without exaggeration. Just the facts. The fundraiser incident. The affairs. The digital evidence. The custody ruling. Her showing up drunk, screaming threats. I handed him a copy of the forensic audit, too. He didn't interrupt once. When I finished, he sat back and exhaled. "You're handling this a hell of a lot better than most guys would." "I've seen worse," I said. "In combat zones, at least the enemy wears the right uniform." He nodded slowly, then leaned in. "Off the record? We get calls like hers all the time. Vindictive exes trying to muddy the waters before they drown. You've got your trail clean. But just watch your step. Women like Madison? They don't fall quietly. They drag." I walked out of the station lighter than I came in. But it still didn't feel like peace. Peace would come when Lily could sleep in her own bed again without wondering who'd be yelling in the hallway. Peace would come when Madison ran out of ammo. But for now, I prepared. I sold the house. It was mine to take after the ruling, and I wanted nothing to do with its walls anymore. I didn't want Lily growing up surrounded by echoes of betrayal. So I met with a realtor, signed the listing, and by weeks in we had a buyer. Madison wasn't notified until the papers were nearly finalized. She called me in a rage. "You can't do that. It's my house too. Not anymore. You gave it up in court. You were too busy screaming threats to read the fine print. You're pathetic," she snapped. "You think getting a check makes you the winner in this?" "No," I said, calm as ice. "Being free of you does." Then I hung up. But the next surprise didn't come from her. It came from Lily. That night, As I tucked her into her makeshift bed at Hannah's, she looked up at me and whispered, "Daddy, is Mommy still mad?" I froze for half a second, then brushed her hair gently. "She's just confused, baby. Sometimes people make mistakes and don't know how to fix them." Lily looked down. "I don't want her to yell anymore." I nodded slowly. "Me either." That's when I realized this fight wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about breaking Madison. It was about protecting the only thing that still mattered. And I was winning, not because she was falling, but because I was finally standing tall. The final blow didn't come from a punch or a courtroom. It came in silence. It was a Tuesday morning when I got the email. No subject line, just a PDF attachment titled, "Final Notice, Green versus Green." Inside were the final divorce papers. Everything was official now, signed, sealed, and filed. Madison didn't even request a hearing. She folded. There was a line at the bottom, a single sentence that made me exhale for the first time in what felt like months. The petitioner withdraws all previous complaints and claims against the respondent. Translation? Madison gave up. The custody, the fake abuse charges, the house, everything. I sat at my desk, rereading that line over and over, expecting a trick, a clause, a hidden hook. There was none. She had nothing left to throw. I'd taken every lie, every betrayal, every venom-soaked insult, and turned it into ammunition. But I never fired wildly. I waited. I aimed. I struck with precision. Now she was done. I thought I'd feel euphoria, vindication. That cold satisfaction of revenge served right. But I didn't. What I felt was heavier, and somehow cleaner. Relief. I was free. Lily and I moved into a small 2-bedroom apartment on the edge of town. Nothing fancy, but it had a balcony that caught the morning light, and a quiet that felt sacred after months of screaming and slamming doors. Her new room had sky-blue walls, glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling, and a bookshelf we built together. She started calling it our fortress, and in a way, it was. One night, she stood beside me on the balcony, brushing her teeth, looking out at the street. "Daddy," she said, "do you think Mommy's still mad?" The question hit harder than anything Madison ever threw at me. I bent down beside her and looked her in the eyes. "I don't know, sweetheart, but that's not our problem anymore." She nodded like she understood, even if only a little. Then she smiled. A real one. That night, I watched her sleep. Safe, warm, whole. It was everything I fought for. Madison tried to destroy me in every way that counts. Emotionally, financially, even legally. But in the end, all she did was reveal who she really was. And once you see the truth, you don't chase the lie anymore. I didn't need to ruin her. She did that all by herself. Looking back, I realized how blind I'd been. The red flags were always there. The disdain in her tone. The eye rolls. The way she used love like a currency, only given when she wanted something. But I also realized something else. You don't need revenge when you have clarity. Real justice isn't a dramatic takedown. It's peace while they drown in their own chaos. And for any man reading this who's walking through that same fire, let me say this. You are not weak for being hurt. You are not broken because she lied. And you are not alone. Heal in silence. Rise in strength. And when you walk away, don't look back. Because the most powerful thing you can do to someone who tried to destroy you is survive them and build something better in the ashes.